coming to July 2026 Open Studio. And as I said in my little blurb when I sent out the invitation for this, I've been working on a variety of things. You saw that, last time. I still have things in the mix. But this time of year, we do spend a lot of time outside. We go out on the boat, and I have my little kit that I bring out with me. And typically I bring it back and forth, and it seems like the weather had been so nice, I wound up leaving it out there. So some of the supplies I would have used tonight, I don't have a duplicate of. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the difference between gouache and watercolor. My gouache is all out on the boat. I have some watercolor here. It does similar sorts of things, but I must admit I do prefer the gouache, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But so I thought it would be fun to just show you a little bit about what I do when I'm painting water. And it all begins with sketching, and it begins with, doing different, so I have little exercises that I make up for myself that have just become part of the habit of what I do when I paint, especially when it's plein air. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And if anyone has any specific questions, remember you can unmute yourself and ask, that no problem at all. But if everyone just checks right now to make sure they're on mute so we don't have any interference. And before I get going, I'll just double check and ask if anyone has any questions. Okay, sounds good. All right, so you've seen I do a variety of styles of sketching, and they all have a different purpose around them. And as I said in my newsletters, I'm very based in contour lines for sketching. I find that's an absolutely excellent way of really training yourself to observe what it is you're drawing. I don't necessarily always sketch like that though, because when I'm focused on creating paintings, whether they're like little field studies when I'm out, or whether they're plein air painting or studio painting, I'll often revert to designing sketches around shapes, and big shapes, small shapes, the layout of the shapes, just anything at all that I can wind up using as my underpainting for a good base of values of the color palette that I'll be using. So the two combined work out really well because I got to the point of making shapes because I'd spent so much time really doing the contour drawing. It gave me a wonderful base of really observational skills. So when I look at scenes, I can interpret them also into different sorts of shapes. And everyone has a different style that they use. And a lot of people have more than one way that they do things too. So, play around with how you actually tackle sketching or painting outdoors and in the studio, but I'll give you a little bit of background on how I do it. So anyway, okay, this is actually my studio book because I did not do that out. In the field. Again, my sketchbook is also out on the boat, so I can't show you the sketch that I did when I was on the boat, unfortunately. So these were some of the photographs that I'd taken. Well, these are not the photographs, clearly. I had used photographs from different scenes from being out on the boat, and just not necessarily thumbnails, but they are small, they are semi-proportional, and these are all based on shapes. So when I'm basing it on shapes, what I'm doing is on the gray tone paper is really looking for those three basic values of light, middle, and dark, which is your white, your gray tone, and your black, and then the variations. And this is with China marker. So you can get very dark areas, and you can also get very white areas. And just by looking at some of these smaller sketches that, it's a great way of really weeding out something might be a really good photograph, but it doesn't necessarily always translate into the painting that you're seeing for the scene. And it's really a good idea to actually know what has attracted you to the scene. And when I'm painting on the water, it really is the movement of the water, not necessarily easy always to capture, but it's also that variation in the lights and the darks. And there's actually a lot that happens on the actual water surface, which isn't going to necessarily show up in that, but you don't need all that little detail when you start. What you need to know is, okay, does that area fall in the light, middle, or dark zone? That's all you need to get going with something like this. So a rather horizontal framework here. One of the ideas that I had for this one, I really liked it because of the way the light was falling in here. And I noticed on that it's not showing up quite as light, but this is pretty light, the glitter path that's coming from the sun that's setting there. But it's a very horizontal um, composition. Nothing the matter with a horizontal composition, but what I would do is go back into this and I would think of how can I use the movement of the waves to give a little bit of that diagonal flow so that it doesn't look like it is just bands of horizontal lines. Because I'm looking for action and the horizontal line's not going to feel like action. I add a little diagonal in it and I'll get action. So that's something that I'm going to do with that. Did I write that in there? No. Okay. This one here, what I've got is, yeah, it's focusing near. I like the idea of having boats, parts of boats and scenes. And I did a series several years ago that had my husband sitting on the edge of the boat, and all you actually saw was his legs in the water, and then it revolved around the water. And they were a lot of fun. I think I'm going to revisit that. But I started off with just collecting some shots and doing some sketches of the edge of the boat and the water. Now, notice here, we've got a diagonal. So that automatically is going to create movement within the painting. Just want to make sure that it doesn't wind up looking like a sliding board. So I started drawing some of my sketches, uh, sketching lines a little. Let me tilt it back a little bit so it doesn't look so dark. So that there was diagonals that were coming out, which is the waves that are being made by the moving boat. And here we have one where we've got, I'm actually in the water taking photographs of the boat, and I have a whole series of those photos too. I would suggest if you're seeing something that you like, take lots of photographs of it. And we're so lucky with the digital age is so what if they didn't turn out, you can just delete them. But the other thing you can do is combine them. And you can take pieces from one photograph and add it to your sketch. And if you've taken them as a series at the same time, the lighting is probably the same. So you don't have to worry about the light that's in the sky or what's falling on the ocean. And I like this idea of part of the boat right here. And here, see, I've kind of translated this and this. And now I'm getting somewhere with that diagonal feel right there. The one I'm going to show you today is this one, because this one I did start on the boat with little sketches, and I'm going to show you that. And this is a sailboat that's off into distance. And you'll notice now again, I've really exaggerated the diagonal flow. And I'll show you how I'm going to plan on the water that's in here. Now, at that point, am I really thinking about rule of thirds and stuff like that? Not necessarily, because what I'm doing is I'm just getting ideas down. And a nice thing to do is on the side of your sketches is just write down some reminders to yourself. Maybe something that you would change or something that you would add or something that was fleeting and you didn't get it in your, like if a boat's going by or a bird goes by or even a wave, to write yourself a note about what was that moving object doing that made you wish you could have captured it in your sketch. Granted, we can take quick photographs, but if you're sketching, it's also hard to take a photograph at the same time. You can get one afterwards or before and hope that the same thing happens. Now, one of the things, especially with waves, I'll put that to the side. One of the things, especially with waves, is they're constantly moving. And was it last week or the week before, there were three artists, myself, Wendy Smith, and Victoria Templeton, that did a little talk, not a little, it was, it was quite a length of time. I think it was close to 2 hours at the Cape Cod Art Center. And Wendy had a really great tip that she explained that she uses when she's painting waves, and that is she finds the wave that she likes, she watches that wave, and then she picks that time when the wave is at the crest that she likes or when it's crashed that she likes. And waves are in a pattern. So she'll paint it when it's like that. And then the wave moves on and she just waits for the next wave to get into that same motion and position. And it's similar to what I do, although I don't paint waves. But what I'll do when I'm on the boat, and the boat is only anchored at one end. We do have an anchor for the front and the back, but it's a small boat. It doesn't really need it. What I'll do on the boat is I'm facing this direction. This is, I'm going to make sure it's showing up on the camera correctly. Yeah. Um, I'm facing in this direction and my view is out here. And then the boat moves. I don't keep trying to paint that same view that I have of maybe the island and people on the beach or boats or that are anchored trees. I don't continue with that. It moves away. I look at the sky, I paint the sky. Okay, it moves back. I paint it again. It moves away. I don't try to keep painting that. So it's similar to what you if you're a plein air painter, that you know you keep your time condensed. A 2 hour block of time, unless there's clouds rolling in or a storm or something like that, or you're near dusk or dawn, the sky's not going to change a lot, at least light wise, not counting clouds moving around. What you can do is confine yourself to that 2 hours, and what you capture in 2 hours is what you capture. Because if you go 3 or 4 hours, the light is going to start changing because the sun has moved. The weather could have changed at any time. So that's not as quite as key as the sun, because the sun's going to impact the light that's falling on the water, the light that's falling on the land, the size of the shadows. So you want to bear that in mind. It's probably the best tip I can give you. If you can't get it done in 2 hours, no big deal. Okay, you can just finish it at home, use the notes that you have, or what you do is you go back the next day if hopefully the weather's the same at the same time. But that's a little side note on plein air. I wasn't really going to talk about plein air, but it kind of came up. So I'm going to show you okay, so this is my watercolor sketchbook. And this is that photograph that I told you that I'd started this on the boat, and it's not necessarily in the format because all I'm really trying to do is capture the colors that I see, the light, and some of the movement of the water.
That is
So,
lovely.
did someone have a question?
Not a question, just a comment. That is lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Simplicity. I mean, that's one thing. Sometimes when you do these as such field studies or field notes or, just little color sketches, I
Mhm.
mean, I like a lot of them to tell you the truth. But then translating it into a painting, a lot of times what you want to do is you want to keep that same, well, I want to keep that same spontaneity that went into it. So
Betsy,
this act,
Betsy,
oh, yes?
sorry, is that watercolor?
What it is it's watercolor underneath.
Okay,
Okay, but it was gouache, sorry. It was
gouache.
gouache underneath. You can see the way it's dripped through because I would have taped this in black tape so that I had a nice clean border. Of course, mine never wind up being clean because I just slop on so much water that I wind up it leaks through. But there's still a border, which is fine. The idea is really to capture again what intrigued me was the light on the water and the movement of the water. So those are the key things. It's not the boat being detailed or the land being detailed or all the other little things that might have been in the scene. And I did take a photograph so I could show it to you. It really was those key pieces. So this had a variation of colors of gouache that I saw in the water. Now we were anchored. It was a little deeper water, so I didn't have really much shallow water there. And although the sky was reflecting in blue, and the photograph's going to look very blue, there really was a lot of blue-green. So that's what I put underneath. So that blue-green that was underneath really gave me the base for the color of the water that I saw, so that when I started adding pastel, two things happen. Start adding pastel, oop, blue-green. It's not going to be a really strong blue. It'll have some blue in it, but it's still going to keep that blue-green feel to it. So this area has dark, and I wish I'd taken photographs of this in progress, but I didn't. But it has dark color gouache underneath. You can see that right here. Where it was light, I had used a very light yellow because I wanted it to feel like it was really light. So I had a nice complement. You're always thinking of contrast there. So I have a nice blue green. So now I'm putting a very light, it was like a light yellow green. So one felt a little cooler, one felt a little warmer, a lot more of the dark color, less of the light color. And then I use the same color in the sky just to kind of connect the whole thing. Keep it simple. You don't need to have 5 million colors. A lot of times my underpaintings really are just a few colors. And I know previous open studios I've done, you've seen when I use acrylic ink. And it's a lot of times I'm not using more than 2 or 3, sometimes 4 colors. There's not a lot of colors underneath there. It's just those key color that you see that you want to capture. So that is one. I'm just going to hold that up. That's the one that was done on location. Couple things I'm going to note. I went a little dark back here. Okay, so I know that. I know that's too dark back here. I want to lighten that. But this really does capture the reflection. Okay, the boat might not be perfectly the right size, but again, think of these little studies that you do, or little paintings. You can little paintings or studies. A study can become a painting. What's the difference between the two? I think the biggest difference is whether you frame it or not. You know, you can have, let's face it, you can go to museums and see, sketches, drawings, color studies by artists, and they're framed. So it doesn't mean that it can't be relegated to a place of honor or uplifted into the category of painting. But the studies are really a fun way of playing around. Now, this one here, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, let me go back to, you'll see I have my color swatches at the bottom. Okay, no matter what you do, whether it's on the side paper, whether it's in your sketchbook, always have little, notes of the colors that you used. And if there's a color that you don't like, I don't have one in there. No, I don't have one on the next one either. Sometimes if there's a color I don't like and I say, I really don't want to use that, it's like there's something that's not jiving with the whole rest. Could be out of whack with value, it could be out of whack with that temperature that I'm going for in either the dark or the light zones. I'll put an X through it. I know you've seen me do that in studios too, just to remind myself, don't use that again, because it's very easy to get wrapped up in, get carried away and start putting stuff back in that at one point you didn't like. I suppose the flip side of that is, as a painting progresses, that color could wind up working. But either way. So this is one that I then did using, okay, and this one a little less spontaneous. You can see that because I was far more focused at this point on really getting the shapes of the lights and darks that were in the water. The last one, it was just blocks of darks and lights. This one here, it's looking more at the patterns that I see in the waves, a little bit more on the boat, and that is causing a shadow. And you can see that I slightly lighten that. It's actually looking a little darker on the screen. It is lighter in real life through there. So a little more, and the same idea, I used the same colors underneath when I was doing this at home. so that I already knew, okay, they worked. That's what I wanted. So I'll use them again on the next study. And sometimes I'll do multiple little color studies like that before I work on a painting. Sometimes I won't do much. This is one that I like the color. I like the painting. This is just a marsh thing, but I'm going to just show it to you just because I just love how abstract this one is right here. That was a marsh scene. And, it was like one of those things that it was like, I just did it and I thought, oh, I just love the amount of texture that was showing through in this. I love the amount of water gouache that I could see underneath the pastel. I did it as a painting, kind of combined it with something else, and didn't have that same spontaneity that this one does to it, but I must admit that would be fun to try that again and just go really loose and crazy with that. That would be a lot of fun. So anyway, with these watercolor sketchbooks, I've mentioned these before. Lorianne Signori, one of her workshops, this is where which direction is it? I had one, there you go. Okay, watercolor paper is treated with clear gesso. I tape a border around it so that when I add my paint to it, I wind up having a nice clean-ish border. This one, I did not leave any room to make marks on it, so I would probably take and lift this up and put it a little bit higher so that I'd have that area underneath. But it's a really, I can't say how much I love doing these in here. I'll show you a couple more, and then I'm going to show you what I do to actually start on a painting. These were some that I did on the boat again, and that is the watercolor that's underneath and the pastel that's on top.
Betsy, I don't want to be a pain in the ass, but you said you have the watercolor paper and then you treat it with the clear gesso
Correct,
before you put the watercolor on it.
correct. You can do it afterwards, but I'm going for the texture feel.
Okay.
And I have larger ones. This one here, I'm gonna get stuff on first. I'm gonna put the gesso, the clear gesso on after. Okay. What's gonna happen as soon as you have clear gesso on it, it does change the texture of the surface. So if you're trying to draw smooth lines, they're gonna be a little choppy, little uneven, just because of the nature of the clear gesso has a little bit of that grit to it. So, it's like drawing on you know, um, concrete or tarmac, it may look smooth, it feels smooth when you're walking on it, but by touch, you've got an uneven surface.
Okay.
It just depends what you want to do. Either way would be, experiment, see which way you like better too. Okay, so you saw what I wanted to do. And like I said, I took a photograph because I figure if there's something I know I want to do, I do like having a photograph if I feel like it's something I'm gonna turn it into a painting. Okay. Let me put that right there. Okay. Turn that so it doesn't fly around. Okay. The other thing that's really handy about the photograph, there's no way as it was painting, I'd be able to get the amount of detail that I would see in the wave or in the reflection of that sail. Two notes on that though. I don't really want to get caught up in the detail, but I'm at this stage where I feel like I find that the photograph helps to remind me of what it was that I saw out there besides the sketches that I have. So my idea is not to replicate the photograph, but one, you'll be able to see what it is I'm doing, besides that little sketch I just showed you. And I just need to pull that back over here now that I think of it, because that's where I've got my colors. So there we go. I've got that down in front of me so I can see it. Okay, so talked about my field notes. So I did start on a little bit of a sketch here. Make sure I have everything. Got my eraser, got my pencil. Okay. Now, should I come in a little bit closer? I can do that. I can come in.
Is that you, Art, that you're,
It is you, Art.
okay.
I'm gonna just gotta come in just a little closer. Okay, let's see how that looks.
What kind of pencil do you use?
I use a graphite and I tend to use soft graphite.
Okay, thank you.
Um, and let me just straighten this up just slightly with all the moving around. And let me go like that. Okay. This is your 600. I am thinking that as I go along, this is something that I've started doing with paintings. This one here was a painting that I decided I wanted to rework, and the front of it was getting very heavy with materials. And this is per the last open studio that I showed you. I put gesso on the back, and this is just a piece of pastel matte. And that helped. I mean, if there's a heavy weight to this now. I was putting so much clear gesso and Spectrafix on the front here for just a sheet of paper. I was getting a lot of buckling. So by putting the gesso on the back, you'll notice, look at how that's smoothed out. There's a little bit of a curve here, but there's no more buckling. So bear that in mind if you're using paper and you're playing around with materials and putting on, let's say, lots of well, a wet material like a gouache, but let's say if you were putting on lots of inks or you're doing watered down acrylic inks or even if it was oils or any of the materials that I just got finished mentioning, like gessos and things like that, is the paper at some point, unless it's on a card, a heavy card, or it's mounted, is going to start to do a little bit of a warp. And then as you drag your pastel over it, you're going to notice that the drag is going to have places where it skips or places where it piles up because it's not a flat surface. So flip it over, treat the back of it with gesso, and that'll help weight the back of it so the back and the front, are not uneven. So anyway, this may get to this point. I'm not really sure how much I'm going to be adding on this one. So a couple of key pieces. Water, remember movement? Okay, I'm going to do it real short with perspective, you guys, but I am going to have to mention it. Perspective exists here too. Okay, I know where my eye view line is. It's right here. I have it here. Okay, this mass of land is going backwards. This is not as such a straight line. So what I'm going to do is I'm adding a little bit of an angle here. So the part of the land right here, I don't mind drawing on this, part of the land here, that's where the beach is. Notice it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller all along there. So what happens is I've already created that sense of depth because what I've done is I have given more size to that landmass that's near us, unless it's diminishing as it goes away towards the horizon line, which is actually right here. Okay. Now that one, just by chance, happened to fall right at the third. Okay, I have little dots here, third down, third. So this is 12. So there's at 4, 8, 12. This is not 9. So it's 3, 6, 9. So my thirds falls right about here. Sailboat and the beginning of all that beautiful wave action is all falling right where I want it at the thirds. It might not be in the photograph, but it's going to be it in the painting. The other thing that's happening here that gives us the feeling of movement is that although these guys are parallel because they're waves that are rolling towards us like this, we're looking at it from the side, which means the lines are actually fanning out. Okay, so as they come near us, they fan out. Okay, so we can wind up using that as a premise. Now, it's not going to be a true fan because it's water and it's moving, and not all of them go up and meet at the same spot, but there's still a level of right in here, that there, and that there is wider. Right here, it's that high, right here, it's that high. So that, again, perspective, as something moves into the distance, those lines start to converge. So that's what I want to bear in mind. Now for the water, what I've done in here is I've set it up. This is a moving
Hi, bye.
object, clearly. So one thing you want to think of is when water's not disrupted by either wind, or a boat moving through it, rock being thrown into it, anything at all, and it's just water that is it's clearly water's always moving, but it's moving, but there's nothing in there that moved dispersed it. So this boat has dispersed water that's running in this track right here. Again, it's going to be wider here, it's going to be narrower there. That is the course that the boat took right here. So this water in here, what's it doing? It's more stationary. So we wind up with a reflection that's around it. So this is where the reflection is, right in here. And that's the reflection of these trees. And you've heard that, well, this massive trees back here. And you've heard this before, that wherever your line is from the water's edge to the top of the tree, the reflection is about the same. It's not a rule of science here, but it's roughly about the same. This is moving water. So I can see I've got my line here. I've driven, can you see my lines? I tried to draw them soft so I could go over them, but okay, so I'm gonna.
Not to be rude, I was just trying to chime in on this class.
It's
Oh,
good.
okay. You in all right then?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm gonna draw that just a little bit darker so you can see in there. Okay, now what's happening? We've got the trees here. I come down, those trees there, they're gonna be reflecting here. So I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna put some lines right in here. These here, that's here. I want it to be a little bit bigger there. So I'm gonna bring those trees up. Just because you drew them one height doesn't mean you can't change it around. I want to have more reflection down here. So I'm going to take and I'm going to now change the trees there so that I can have a more interesting reflection. Okay, and rather than just sticking with the reflection that is in the photograph, kind of make up your own. And then look at this guy here. Look at that gorgeous reflection. Look at that there. I want him that to show up because I really like that. So I'm going to come in and I am, let me get that. I'm going to get rid of that line that's right there. Going to get rid of that line that's right here. But notice what I did. I did that all along that initial line. And what have I done? Okay. Wider here, guess what? That's about the same width, isn't it? A little bit longer here, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come up. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger there. Now, this is definitely bigger here than it is here, okay? Perspective, as something goes back, you want it to diminish the same way here as this went back, got shorter. As the land goes farther back, it gets narrower. We want the reflections to do the same sort of thing. Okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit of a connection in here. I'm gonna break those apart later anyway, because you know, it's moving water, so it's not going to wind up having those straight edges. I just wanted you to see those straight edges. How does that make sense to you guys? Make sense? Hopefully.
Yep.
Good.
Yes.
A little too busy. Okay, see, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't need to have all that in there. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that because what's happening is I am starting to do detail. I don't want to do detail. So I have that, bring that down. That got up a little bit too high. I'm going to drop it because it's this area right in there. I want to feel a little smoother right in there. That gives it. Now, waves. So there's your reflections. You can change the angles of your reflections so that they match. This height here is about this here. Doesn't have to be exact. This here, it's a little narrower here. Guess what? I could put like a little something out here. That'd bring it up a little higher because that's part of that reflection. Maybe it's a little not moving as much right there. That's right in there. Not moving as much. Well, it's the green that's not moving. Sorry about that. And then the height here and the height here. Good. I'm going to break that up and I'm going to stick that right in here. So that breaks it up. Breaks it up. See, I've almost, you're kind of, it's not puddle jumping because you don't want it to look like everything's even and online, but you do want to, think of that flow of the water. Now that's going to get slightly adjusted because what's going to happen? Oh, look at my hands made this all. This is okay. So someone asked, Lori asked what I was using. Okay, I'm using a B pencil and I'm using a 4B. And this 4B is pretty darn soft. So as my hand leans, I'm starting to lose some of my lines. If that sort of thing bothers you, 2B is probably better. I would suggest on pastel papers being very careful if you use a pencil that's an H. Here, let's go like this. An H pencil. Okay, that is hard lead. Hard lead, if you press down too hard, will leave a little groove in your pastel paper. So if you have a light touch, you're all right. But if you use H pencils on pastel paper, you put a line down, you press too hard, you erase it. Guess what? It's almost like gravestone rubbing. When you put the pastel over it, that line could show up. Okay, which is why I tend to use B, which are soft. Okay, and they will not. Look, if I pressed really hard, yes, it probably would, but I'm not pressing that hard, and I get a really dark line, which is exactly what I want. Okay. Hang on a second, that's going to bug me. I want you to be able to see that. There we go. All right, so now the waves. When you think of the waves, am I thinking of all this when I'm doing my color notes, my field studies when I'm out there? Yes, to a certain extent I am, but not to the detail that I'm explaining now. Okay, water near us, okay? This is near us, so the lines are not going to be as tight in the waves. Just putting that one down just so you can see it. Remember these lines we had here? Going to put them in just a little bit darker so you could see them. And then we had another one that's right here. Okay. This is the ebb. It comes up and it goes over and it goes back down. Again, you do not need to draw all this. You need to know it. And this goes back to observing. Okay. That curve right there is going to make it feel like it's a wave. Okay, it comes up, goes over that crest, falls into the dip, comes back. Are they all even? No. And I'm just putting those, it kind of looks like I'm putting a roof on a house. But the reality of it is I want you to see what it's doing. Not that we have to leave that there, but anytime at all you're drawing something and you need anything at all, any kind of line that's a direction, like these and these, draw them in there to remind yourself that you're creating a sense of space. You don't want it to be flat. If I did this flat across, it would feel as if we were standing in front of it and we were looking at it flat. We're not. We're standing to the side. We're looking this way. So that's why that's on an angle. This here, the waves. So down in here, I have fewer. Okay, and this down in here, there's like hardly anything because this is near me. Again, These guys are wider, get narrower as they go along. So in here, these are just my guidelines. I'm just going to do a couple little ones in here. So I've got this. Okay. And when I do my underpainting, I've got areas that are dark in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shade that in. Okay. That dark, that's right in here on a wave. Okay. That falls right behind the crest of the wave. Okay. The crest is right here. Remember, I had that crest that went up, falls right behind it. And it doesn't necessarily, I'm gonna see, there's my crest right there. See, I have my little dimple right there that's going up. It's gonna go right behind it. I'm just gonna draw that right in so you can see it. Doesn't have to go all the way. Okay, we're gonna just lessen it out up here. Less. Okay, and I'm gonna have some that go here. Okay, so already I'm feeling as if there's some movement. The greater you make these curves, these hills and valleys, the more rocky the water is going to feel. And these lines wind up getting erased in here. They were just your cues for how it's going to fall. So now when I do my lines here, now I can go, okay, I don't want it to be, I want it to be really rocky. This is my valley. So I'm just putting little lines right in here. Okay, and as they go back, they get just a little bit flatter because it's farther away. And then back here, we're not seeing anything. So we got a little bit, oops, whoop, flying out of my hands. Okay, and again in here, I'm going to get rid of this guy. He doesn't make sense. I'm not really sure what I was doing when I drew that. Okay, coming in. And I got to come through here. Okay, I'm flattening it out a little bit. Those little lines tell me what direction to put things. Okay. Okay, questions. Does this make sense? Okay, these are your guides. Okay. Remember, your stroke can be that. Okay. And I'm just spacing them any old way. I'm not necessarily going here. There we go. Okay, so let's see how this is going to translate into getting some good. Okay, timing this about right. I wanted you to see how that goes down as a underpainting. Let me move a couple of these things out of the way. So I have a lot of big shapes here. Okay, so for lack of having my gouache, I'm going to use a little bit of watercolor here. Remember I said I'd already discovered that what I needed I needed a color that was like a blue-green. So what I'm doing is I've got a green. I'm using this little set right here. And I'm using the lid of a takeout container to mix the color. Okay, so I'm mixing the green and I'm adding just a little bit of touch of yellow. Remember what I said? A little bit of yellow to turn it a little bit more of a yellow green, because I'm going to get him some of my lights first. Okay. Yeah, see, this is the thing with watercolor. It's you can't get a real strong color. And I'm not that I'm looking for anything that's too vivid, but it's going to be pretty washed out. So those areas that are light, I'm just going to get in here and I'm just going to get them in. And that's on either side of that dark line that I had. And it gets pretty light back here. Some of these dark areas, I can add them in later. So see what I've done in here? And see that I've left the space, I've let just so it drips. Water that's nearer you, that you can look down into, it typically feels lighter when it's nearer you. Because what happens when it's nearer you, you can look into the water. Okay, when it's farther away, you're getting more of the reflection of the sky. So let's get this a little bit more yellow in here. This is that lovely, oh, I like this yellow green. I'm just gonna see my pencil lines, gonna get them in and see my lines, they're reminding me. I got that little curve that's there, see that? Get that in there. Those guys are solid back there. Oh, I like this color better. Gonna get a little bit more in there. I'll get. At this point, I'm not really looking for detail. I'm looking for just getting down shapes. I'm gonna get that light that's falling right around that boat right there. Okay. Now I'm gonna kind of switch, clean that up a little bit. Some of those drips, don't mind some of the drips, but I don't want them to drip too much. So now I'm gonna switch and I'm gonna get a little bit of that. See now in my tray, I'll give you a tip. These trays, some of them have like a little lip around the outside edge. I don't know if you can see that. If I tip it too much, I'll probably lose it. Well, there's a lip. Oh, you can see it underneath. So what's happened is that original green I had now has gone into the trough that's around the outside edge. So I just kept pulling it into the center and adding the yellow. Now I'm going to take that same green, I'm going to pull it into the center away from the trough there. And I'm just going to add a little bit of blue to it. And I'm going to make some of the darker area. I'm going to do the sky last. Well, sometimes I do the sky first.
Betsy, I think the gouache is nice.
Yeah, this is just plain old watercolor. It's a little lighter.
Oh, it's not gouache.
No, it's not. That's on the boat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I only have the one thing of gouache, and I thought I should really have two of those. It's that Caran d'Ache,
Oh,
set. You can't buy the little individual pans. You can buy tubes. So I do have some tubes that I fill it in, but I don't have the full set here. So, it wasn't really worth trying. So see, now that same light green, that green I started with, that I added yellow to, now that same green consistency here. I'm not bringing in a whole new green. Now this is darker. Oh, see, for me, it's just not going to read as dark as I want it to. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a darker green to it and get more of the blue in there. Let's see. Okay, it's water. Okay, let it drip. When you're doing your underpainting for water, guess what? If you say, oh, it's dripping too much, same thing I showed you last week, you can just lift it up so it doesn't drip. The other thing you could do, of course, is to can't rub it, but you could just take, let's get this so it doesn't start popping up. What's going on underneath? You could just take and you can lift. If you use a paper towel on any of these pastel papers, do not rub, just pat it because the fibers on a cloth will come off on it. See, oh yeah, see, it's not going to be as dark as it was with gouache. Okay, well, this is a good, oh, there, that's a little darker. Here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use less water. See if I can get this dark. Okay, around that dark area, dark area, dark area, dark area. This area is all dark in here. And do I need to be all careful? No, because I want it to be all flowy. Okay, see these little drips here? Not really crazy about those drips. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna get some of the dark back in up here. Oh, don't use a dirty towel either. Geez, I think I do that in every demo. What not to do? Don't use a dirty cloth. Okay. I'm gonna go back, add a little bit of light back to this one. I'm gonna come across right in here. My boat's right in there, that back here. So that looseness is going to help you when you start to paint, because what's happening, it's going to remind you this is actually this is water. Okay, I should have waited for it to dry. But I tend to do that. I get a little impatient. I'll have to deal with that later. Ooh, that does look nice though. Look at that. That looks really nice. Okay, so this is the difference with, let me try this. Okay, no water, just watercolor. Okay, no water. I just dip my brush in. See, that's a little too blue. See, I need to mix that with a little of the green. And just keep saying that to yourself. Think of like, okay, I'm trying to make, oh, like that's a little bit more of a green. That's a little, ooh, that's a little bright green. Oh, kind of like that. Okay, boat's still there. The boat's getting covered up. No big deal. That's darker now. Okay, it's not exactly the dark that I would want. I would want it a little less of a greeny look to it, but I can go over that. I'm not going to do that now because everything's a little bit too wet. Let me just clean my brush. Might be better off just using another brush. You notice I was just using these kind of brushes, from the hardware store. They stop you from really trying to make everything perfect. Okay. Unless you want it. If you want it to be perfect, then and nice, clean lines and more watercolor painting looking, then use one of those, use a regular watercolor brush. A flat one would work out really nicely. Okay, but once you start using that, you're going to notice a big difference because this kind of keeps you really, really loose. Okay, see the way that has dripped down? So the other thing you can do is you can do this flat. Of course, I'm doing this upright so you guys can see it. I could have done this. Okay, so these trees back there, I want them to be a different type of green, and I'm going to, what's the opposite of green is red, so I'm going to just take a little bit of red. I do this a lot when I paint with gouache, is I use the opposite color to kind of neutralize it, so that what happens is you're making a nice a color. It's a little bit more neutral or grayed. The word gray doesn't actually, let's see. Okay, look at that. That's just with a, jeez. Okay, let me just get some of the water out. I'm using this and I'm going like this. I've got it too wet. Okay, I'm gonna just get in here. And I'm gonna stop at the sail because I don't want to have to deal with trying to paint over that sail. Oh, geez, Betsy. That was funny. That just came off of the brush lying in there. I squint my eyes and look. That's feeling a little bit too light. So I'm going to come back in here with that same color. Just using a little bit more of that. Okay. Yeah, still too much liquid in here. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back. I'm gonna do that later. Trying to do this standing up in a demo, I feel like I'm just getting just lots of drips in there. But I am gonna clean this off and I'm gonna get new water. And I'm gonna just put in some of the sky. And if you recall, I had said that I used a yellow underneath, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use a nice yellow underneath. Make sure this is really clean because I just don't want the. So I cleaned the brush in water and now I have the yellow and I want yellow underneath it and I'm going to use a cadmium yellow. And I'm going to try more for Oh, wow, that doesn't show up. Okay, so this is the biggest tip. I'll have to do one. I know I've done gouache demos before, but this is a hot summer day. I'm trying to do this in a dry brush. Let's get more of that on here. Okay, and come across. Oh, a little bit of that back there is not going to be that bad because that's going to reflect the sky coming here. Okay, what happens with gouache is you don't use as much water. So okay, let's get this in here. Okay. So what I should have by the time I get, you want your underpainting to have pretty good level of value shifts. So where's the value shift that's problematic is this one back in here, okay? And that's because I just cannot get a dark enough green that I want. So I'm gonna have to let that dry. And this is going to get repainted so that I can get this a little bit darker. And it's not worth me trying to get in there and fiddle with it because everything's all wet. You can see what the UART paper is doing. It's starting to do a little bit of a buckle here. So a couple of things, UART, when it's wet, it does tend to buckle. But what you can do is you can lie it down after it's dried with heavy weights on it, a couple of books, and it will flatten out. That's not an issue. If I'm going to, of which I will be doing some clear gesso on top of this, the clear gesso on top of this, what I would do is I would put clear gesso on the back of it too. Now you might say, you have pastel matte, color fix, UART, they all have their own texture. Then why would you take and add clear gesso? Because it does change the texture. So why pay for pastel matte, which I love that paper. It's got a very soft feel to it, but a real strong tooth. So it hangs onto the pastel. Once I add clear gesso over it, that pastel matte is no longer pastel matte. So I would not use, I mean, that one that I showed you, that nighttime one, the painting wasn't working. So yeah, what the heck am I gonna, I might as well just try something different and put clear gesso over it. But I would not really take a clean sheet, a new sheet of pastel matte and add clear gesso to it because I could be doing that with a sheet of watercolor paper. I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So you have to think in terms of one thing I am doing, which is really fun. I've just sidetracked myself, is I'm taking paintings that I like, but there's just something about them that didn't work. Now, what do I do with them? I save them because I think, okay, maybe I can use them for something. If I can't figure out what I've done wrong, what is it that's not working? It may not, I didn't do something wrong. I just haven't taken it to the next level and I need to. Some of them I am taking and I'm just coating them with clear gesso. And it's almost as if I'm out using my painting that was underneath as my underpainting, and now I'm like starting a little fresh on top of it. But like I said, I would not, might as well just use watercolor paper if you're going to use the clear gesso or the UART. I think UART, that'll work out. That'll work out fine.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
When did you switch from pastel and alcohol underpainting to gouache and to gouache?
Good question. Well, you know what happened is I think I spent, it is actually, I think in one of the open studios. I kept saying, oh my gosh, I have these gouaches. I want to use the gouaches. And I think it took me about 2 or 3 years to actually get around to using gouache as a underpainting. And it was
Okay.
like a slow process. I really do
Yeah.
like using pastel, hard pastel with alcohol,
Uh-huh.
and I do like using acrylic inks. But
Okay.
if I'm painting on location, the alcohol, sometimes it
Mm.
takes forever for it to,
Yeah.
something to dry.
Yeah.
Still feasible. I could use it. The acrylic inks, probably not.
Right.
Gouache, it's opaque. I'm not going to be dealing with all the transparency that I'm getting
Right.
here, right?
Right. Right.
So I can still get those lovely, more, it's not vivid, well, opaque colors that are down. I like that rich color underneath.
Okay.
So that's what happened. It was kind of a slow progression of me kind of saying I'm going to do it, and then I finally did it.
And are you liking the way the pastel adheres to the paper with the gouache on it?
Yes, yeah. The beauty is gouache is because it's opaque, but it's also water-based, it does not fill the tooth.
Ah,
So, which is another reason why I liked acrylic inks. Because
okay.
acrylic inks, you get these really rich colors,
Okay.
but it's not a lot of ink that you're using. If you wanted to get that with, let's say, acrylic, you'd fill
Mhm.
the tooth.
Okay.
So yeah, so those two I really like. Yes, as a backup, I'll use watercolor, but we can see here watercolor. I'm gonna have to go back in. I want a little bit more
Right.
richness.
Well, it's tough to do watercolor vertical.
Well, it is too. It is. Very
Doesn't
true.
work so well.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Very
Well,
tough.
we saw sometimes the drips actually work.
Yes, the
You
drip
know?
do work.
Look at this blob I have that's happening over here.
Oh, yeah.
No big
So
deal. Guess what? I'm gonna be painting over it anyway.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So
no problem.
do you put gesso over the underpainting?
This one I am going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
And
gonna get the colors the way I like them, and then
yeah,
I'm going to put gesso over, clear gesso.
okay.
And that's an important factor. If you use gesso, it's not within reach. I can't get it.
Right,
You want to make sure and use clear gesso,
right,
so that it dries totally transparent,
right.
I'm
which
still
is wonderful.
confused why you do that. Why are you
Why do I add the clear gesso?
go over that underpainting that you just did?
Because I want to give it more texture.
More texture, okay.
More texture. So that will give it more texture than just the UART paper. I mean, UART paper has a great texture, nothing the matter with it, but I'm experimenting with this whole
Mhm.
textural thing that I kind of explained
Yeah.
in June.
Yes.
So this is just a progression of it, and that's exactly what I did with those little studies that you saw. It was
Right.
although I had the gesso first and then I did everything on top. Well, I think, okay, well, I want to try this one with the paint first and
Okay.
then put the gesso over it, because it's the same thing that I did with, and I reversed it. I did it both ways with the acrylic inks,
Yeah.
where sometimes I put the ink down and then the pumice ground on top of it, and sometimes I put the pumice ground first and then the acrylic ink. Does
Mhm.
anyone remember which one I liked better and why?
Oh,
Well, I'll tell you. What I liked about acrylic inks, which is probably going to be the same that happens with this here, but we'll see. What I liked about acrylic inks is if your painting's not working, and I always did those on boards, or the majority of the time I did them on boards, I could go to the sink and I could wash it off, because acrylic ink resists water, so it will not wash off. Well, if I have acrylic ink and a coat of pumice ground on top of it, okay, I can still wash it off, but what happens is I'm also washing off the pumice ground. So I found that I like doing it with the acrylic ink on last, because it was just a one more layer. Now, granted, if I got in there and I was scrubbing, I was going to take everything off, to tell you the truth,
Mhm.
at some point.
Okay.
Okay, so hopefully that I did, and see the little lines are still there as this dries. Yeah, and it dripped down, and you see, I may like some of the way it drips. Actually, I like the way this side over here got a little bit lighter. Maybe I'll play with a little bit more light on this side than on this side. And I'll take advantage of the fact that this side here has more light. Oh, that's not a bad idea. It's the same with the way this moved in here. Okay, so I have my lines underneath. I can still see them that are going to remind me of my dips and up and down. You put those, you know what? You can do that in a landscape too. You can do it in anything. Put directional lines. And the first time, well, I shouldn't say the first time, but you know who talks about that in his early instruction, he may still do it, is Richard McKinley, is putting down directional lines in your preliminary work. So that just reminds you of the direction of your strokes, which is excellent. A lot of my sketches are like that too, directional strokes. So, well, hopefully that was something that was a little fun that you can actually try yourself and play around with. And remember, if you have a sketchbook and you decide you want to try it and you can't, you want to know exactly how to do it, just let me know. I might actually just put it in the next newsletter, but that means I have to remember to do it. I don't have oh yeah, I have a pencil right here. Okay, I'm gonna write down myself a note. I will put the directions for doing the watercolor sketchbooks. You know what? If something's in a sketchbook, to a certain extent, it can feel less precious, which means you will try things that you may not try on a piece of paper that or board that you've relegated to a painting.
Right.
So if you're the sort that's adventurous, it's probably not going to make any difference. If you're the sort that's a little bit more methodical, you get a sketchbook and you do these fun things in the sketchbook. That's the only place they're ever going to go. And you may wind up doing something that you hadn't even thought of, and it's like, oh my God, that's a great idea. Whereas, sometimes it's like they say, the piece of white paper is usually the hardest thing for an artist, is getting rid of the white paper, which is why we tone them. So they're no longer white. So we have something else. But anyway, so
Betsy,
well, thank you for coming. Any more questions?
I do, Betsy.
Deborah?
So your sketchbook looks so neat. It doesn't look smudged or anything. How do you get around that?
Good question. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. Oh, well, with these, well, I put a piece of glassine
Okay.
one side so that when I do the next page, okay, you can see, well, look at here. I forgot I closed the book up before I put the glassine down. I got some of the color over here. That's okay. But yeah, a piece of glassine goes between each of the pages. Whoops.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see it. Yeah.
But do you give them a spray at all so you don't have too much dust? Or you shake?
No. No, some of these I've been using the Spectrafix, which does fix it, but it also wets it. So this is a little different than a regular spray fixative. But you can use a spray fixative. I just always tell people, go outside to use the spray fixatives, because the odor's noxious and you don't want to be breathing that stuff in.
What is that one called?
This is a Spectrafix, and it's really more of a wet medium. It's the one that I showed in the June paint, open studio.
Okay.
And I'll be using this on that too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, nice class. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank
See
you
you
so
next
much.
time.
Are you gonna watch the tall ships?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Are they coming through the Cape Cod Canal?
Some are.
Oh, yeah, probably.
The ones that can make it under the bridge.
I know, Steve. That's right. Steve's been paying attention to what's going on. So yeah, probably
enjoy.
will.
Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, the Cape Cod Canal, it's not that far, although it could be really crowded over there. But they've got some big parking lots. If anyone's interested, they have the biggest parking lots are the Cape side of the bridge over by the Maritime Academy, in the museum, and was it Seafood Sam's, Pilot House?
Yeah.
They've got some big parking lots over there.
There's some
Yep.
space on the very back of the hockey rink too, if you sneak in.
Oh, right,
And-
there would be. That would be a
Yeah,
good spot.
all the way to
Where?
the back of it. Yeah.
Ah, very good. Very good. No, thank you.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you, Betsy.
everybody.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yes. And if you go out, take pictures. There's some boat photos for you. Boats are another whole deal. I'll talk more about boats another time, but yeah, they can be a little bit of a perspective thing. So just start off with the ones way off in the distance that you just really have a silhouette feel to them
Mhm.
and get them in there and just think of, the way it's moving on the water.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jen.
everyone.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of July. And
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be seeing you in August. Just depends on the calendar, but I'm planning on doing it in August if I'm going to be around, okay?
Very good.
Okay, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.